Well. It's lucky December 13th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Bob Harris. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel. It's time to go on the hot seat. But first, FootballDiehards.com is the website. You all know that. We appreciate you joining us here every Wednesday for the On the Hot Seat at 7 p.m. at the same time. And also on Saturdays for the Ask Me Anything live streams. I love the live stream with y'all. Love the questions. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell, all that stuff. And then hit the like button. Or dislike, like we're big boys, we can handle it. And by big boys, I mean there's two of us here. It's not just me, Bob Harris. It's also one of my good friends, Pat Fitzmaurice, from FantasyPros, Betting Pros, and just like in this business, like we're all collegial and friends and stuff, but there's a few people that really stand out, and Pat is one of them. Just a truly great human, and love getting a chance to do this with him. So, Pat, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Bob. And yeah, the feeling is very mutual. You are one of the truly great people in this business, and it's an honor to get to chop it up every now and again with you. And we talked about it just before we came on here. It's like, yeah, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel as far as the weekly grind goes, but like we're also kind of energized for the sprint to the stretch here. And I don't know about you, but I've got some like playoff teams that I'm kind of excited about. So yeah, let's do this. Let's help some people get past week 15.
Yeah, coop it out. And like it's playoff time, right? And playoffs. So I mean, love when we get to this time of year. And so I want to start this out with a couple of questions, Pat, that I think, like I know I struggle with, right? So I'm sure, people out there in the chat are struggling with them as well. And it's like, at what point do we start outsmarting ourselves? And by outsmarting ourselves, like, prime example, at what point do we start looking at options not named Patrick Mahomes when the other option is named Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like I know there are people who are going to consider benching him, and I think like I've got Mahomes ranked quarterback 6 this week. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to prop him up in the rankings. So yeah, as of now, I mean, we know that 400-yard blow up game can come at any time. I mean, he is definitely short on wide receiver weaponry, and hopefully the Chiefs will address that in the offseason. But yeah, I understand it. And, Bob, you talk about outthinking, like people do, the inclination is to want to manage your teams. And like, people feel like whatever they can do, like the hands-on stuff is what's going to get them over the finish line. But sometimes like that's the worst thing you can do. And I think weather is a perfect example of this. Like people really want to play the weather thing. And we saw people benching like Lamar Jackson in that game against the Rams the other day. Like people were making some suboptimal decisions, benching a lot of their Rams and Ravens and what turned out to be this shootout. So, hopefully people will resist that temptation and, only manage in intelligent ways, I guess. And like, that's hard to define, but, don't overmanage, don't get cute. Don't say you're playing for upside by starting a guy with an 8-touch outlook versus a guy who's like got a 16-touch outlook.
Right. I don't know how many people I mean, you take tons of questions as well. But I mean, like you had literally questions like, Patrick Mahomes or maybe Josh Dobbs this week. Well, obviously that one worked out, but CJ Stroud was another popular one, and that one didn't play out, right? I mean, but I think these things, we make single variable things, and we see like weather, or we see a matchup, or we see an injury situation, and we conflate these things to the worst possible because there's uncertainty involved, and our mind is like a vacuum. And when there is uncertainty, it sucks up all the most horrible outcomes, and that's what plays over and over in our head. And so we tend to do this even with a player like Patrick Mahomes, or let's say last week, Austin Eckler, who, we heard the talk like, oh, it's time to start the competition for touches. Well, Austin Eckler was still getting sufficient volume, but your point is well taken. So this is Jeff Mann's theory, and I love this theory because he throws it out there a lot. And it's a good reminder that, build a depth chart for your fantasy team, right? Have a depth chart so you don't sit there and you don't toggle back and forth. Look, if you like to toggle back and forth, go ahead. But if you're in here asking us questions about like, I think the big, we all know what's coming when you say, wouldn't it be crazy? Well, no, it's not crazy, but I don't know that it's usually wise, right? When you have to preface your question like that. So But there are other players where it's more of a legitimate question. And I would say, like, we go into the Thursday games. And so you've got the variable of a Thursday game. And by the way, your point on weather, that I am injury agnostic when I'm drafting because everyone gets hurt. Every single one gets hurt at some point to some degree, right? If you're not going to draft players who have been hurt because they're injury prone, well, then you're missing out on Christian McCaffrey's 20 points a game. Good for you. And like it doesn't always work out, but this is the possible outcomes. But it's the same with weather, and it's like we forget that football is a winter sport, and like the vast majority of games are played outdoors in horrible conditions, and you have to deal with that. So, and that Baltimore game was a prime example, and also the Jets were a prime example where Zach Wilson has AFC Player of the Week, Offensive Player of the Week level play in the horrible weather. So there we have it. Here we go. We'll have to hit you up here.
Now, all right, John, let's get things straight. First of all, in the off season, was I Bob, I might have said this on a show with you and Mike Dempsey. Like Achane reminded me of Warwick Dunn. Like I thought he was the next Warwick Dunn because of the speed and the contact balance. And that's why, like I was kind of high on Achane. I'm not gonna like do victory laps about having planted the flag because I mean, like, let's face it, Achane's given us like 4 good games or whatever, but like I was excited.
They were really
good. They were very, very good. Not so much because of the speed, but I think he's got like just like next level contact balance.
Right.
Like he not only Bob, guys will hit him, and not only do they not bring him down, but like it's like a pinball hitting a bumper where he actually like the contact propels him faster in a different direction. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just, he is so fun to watch. And I think he's going to be a guy we're drafting in like the 2nd round next year.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I mean, there's always, players that, show up that you were maybe like, I know I was skeptical on players. And like, by the way, when you're doing the things in preseason, we can adjust and adapt as we see things take place. I looked at those Miami running backs and they were all reasonably priced, right? There are best ball teams where I have all 3, including Jeff Wilson Jr. as the 3rd, drafting in, shortly after the draft or whatever, they're all going in, the 50th or later pick, and you could have all those pieces. So all good pieces. But like there are some decisions that I think are tougher. Like Justin Jefferson, I don't know if that's a tough decision if he's playing, but you have the variable of his injury, the variable of his quarterback. How far down do you put him? What, like in a 3 receiver league, there's no way you're not playing Justin Jefferson almost regardless of the circumstances, correct? Oh, let's throw Devontae Adams in the mix there too. Is he in that same boat, or are you starting to dial back on him?
So I've still got Jefferson in the top 10 and I've still got Adams in the top 20. Yep. And, we're starting to get a buzz that maybe if Aiden O'Connell doesn't play well, that he might be in danger of being benched for Jimmy Garoppolo. So maybe that's almost reassuring to me in a way, Bob, if I'm a Devontae Adams stakeholder, that like if AOC is playing very poorly this week, that like maybe Jimmy Garoppolo rides into the rescue here and helps preserve a decent game for Devontae Adams and maybe for Jacoby Myers too. So I'm still playing those guys. I mean, those guys are still 2 of the more talented wide receivers in the league. So I tend to ride or die with my next level talents.
Well, so I talk about this a lot on these live streams, and as everyone here probably knows, they're going to hear it one more time. Volume, people, volume matters. And in the case of one Devontae Adams, the volume, if whether you like what he's been doing with it or not, the volume has been immense, and it's hard to deny. I want to say his target shares over the last few games have been ridiculous. Last 4 games, 52%, 34%, 22%, 34.5%. Those are, I mean, at some point he's going to hit. And so like, if other pieces have risen up and are providing you consistent production, go with them and have them in there. But that doesn't mean you need to leave Adams out. And I know it gets frustrating, but we do tend to overmanage in these situations. Tight end's been an interesting position, Pat. We've seen some players rise up unexpectedly. What is like if you're in the streaming range of options there, what are some of the streamers that you like the best?
Isaiah Likely probably isn't available anymore, Bob, but Tucker Kraft, especially with the injury issues the Packers are having at wide receiver right now, with not only Christian Watson probably out another week at least with a hamstring injury, but Dontavian Wicks might have sustained a high ankle sprain on Monday night. So, that leaves the Packers short on pass catching firepower. And we saw Tucker Kraft pretty heavily involved for them on Monday night, and he's still available in a lot of leagues. Hey, Mr. Scampers.
Scampers in the
Great guy,
house.
Mr. Scampers and Mrs. Scampers. Very nice people. Got to meet them in Canton this year. So let's see. Tucker Kraft is one.
Is Chico Conquo starting to not turn into the thing we drafted him because that ship has sailed, people.
Right.
But maybe a thing that we could say, okay, while everyone's dialed back on him, maybe you could start using him or no.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's reaching the desperation level. Maybe I've got him maybe around tight end 20, and I'm probably below consensus. I know I want to farm out all these tight end questions to Coop here, Bob.
Stone Cold Smart. I just go with that because that's a Coop guy.
Yeah, we've got Coop here in the chat, and you're asking me tight end questions. That seems like, but boy, I know I saw Coop say something like, and I was not going to suggest this anyway, that with Keenan Allen ruled out, some people might express interest in Gerald Everett this week. And, I kind of don't want to go there. I don't want to buy into really anything in the Chargers passing game with Easton Stick and no Keenan Allen. It's probably going to be pretty gross. So, I mean, Kraft was maybe my favorite of those. Njoku. Could even maybe work up a little enthusiasm for Michael Mayer. I know he hasn't done much lately, but the matchup is pretty good this week. So hopefully most people are locked in, Bob. I know every year we talk about try to talk ourselves into the idea that there is tight end depth.
Right.
And this year we've actually got it this year. And hopefully in the future with this wave of young guys, Kincaid, McBride, Laporta, Brock Bowers coming in next year, maybe once and for all, Bob, we actually do have tight end depth.
As long as we have an Andrew Cooper, there will always be streaming tight ends available because the depth of information is amazing. All right, let's get to some of the questions here. I've bet your ear considerable and found out all the answers to my questions. So we'll get some answers to the other questions. Patrick G. Mafia, pick one. Thielen, Addison, Myers. He has Jacobs or Lockett. Keenan Allen is out. Yes, he is. This sounds like a standard league that people still play in those.
Yeah, I'm still going with Lockett here, Bob. I don't know how you feel, but we have seen wide receivers just destroy the Eagles all season long. And I know the increased role for Jackson Smith and Jigba has maybe cut into Lockett's fantasy value just a little bit, but still he seems like he's getting 6 to 8 targets most weeks. And I think over the last, 7 games or something, he's averaged 60 some yards. He's giving us a usable floor. Yeah. So Lockett has not seen fewer than 5 targets in a game since week 2. And over his last 5 games, averaging 7.2 targets, 5.4 catches, 61.8 yards. That's a pretty safe floor. And then factor in this really nice matchup against the Eagles. I think he's the best option.
Yeah, and Patrick says Godwin and Dobbs also. Dobbs and Godwin. I'm probably sticking with you. Whilst you were going at it there, I went and just took a peek at my rankings. And as I expected, Lockett is at the top for the reason you outlined of this group in particular anyway. And also, it seems like we don't have to worry if it's Drew Lock instead of Geno Smith. In fact, might be okayer with Drew Lock at this point, just the way it's been going. All right. Mark Spafford, a regular, needs a flex play. Zamir White Thursday. We have Josh Jacobs listed as questionable. Devontae Adams questionable too, by the way, and really irritated and embarrassed. Maybe questionable due to embarrassment after that last game. So we've got Zamir White versus the Chargers or CEH at New England. If Pacheco's active, I could put Pop Douglas in, so I can afford to wait. I think Pacheco probably not going to be active. Did not practice today. The discussion last week when Andy Reid was asked if he might be going on IR, the we'll see comment kind of okay. Where are you at on these guys?
Yeah, Mark's giving us a whole flowchart type situation here. I think
Love
it's
that.
Zamir White if there is no Josh Jacobs. Then I think you turn to CEH, and in the unlikely event Pacheco is back, and I saw that comment too, Bob. I don't think we should expect Pacheco back. So if Jacobs plays, I think you go CEH, but if Jacobs is out, I think you play Zamir White.
I concur. Thinking of Zamir White getting 15, 20 touches against the LA Chargers is a pretty appealing thing, or any back that's
Yeah,
capable.
and it would actually be fun to see Zamir White like
Yeah,
finally get a decent workload. Like that guy was a powerful runner at Georgia. Like not much in the passing game, but
right.
like that guy brings it. I'd love to see what he could do with 20 touches.
All right, we've got our friend Mike Arts in playoff hell. Playoff hell. Well, at least you're in the playoffs. I mean, with the degree of hell, whichever concentric ring it is, it's not the worst one. Lost Herbert and no Keenan Allen this week. Definitely not good. Need our thoughts. Well, you need to give us some options here. Let's see if you've got given us some down here. I don't know if you gave us any options. Well, I'll just tell you, you are in hell. I'll concur with your assessment there, Pat. Is he in hell or what?
He is in hell. That's
We don't know the
unfortunate
options.
to lose that. Well, so we've got what full point PPR. He says he needs two
Yeah.
Javante, Connor, Chandler,
If this
Spears.
is the same league, he would need some upside here, I'm guessing. Okay, same team, Superflex lost her. So, okay, so he's got Purdy, picked up Flacco. So you're going to be okay at quarterback, but let's figure this out.
Yeah, like Javante's top of the list for
Yep.
me just because of the workload. And then Bob, I don't know how you feel about this, but if there's no Alexander Madison, I would prefer Chandler over Connor and
I would
Spears.
too.
Like Connor has done nothing as a receiver this year, 14 catches for 36 yards. And he's going against a 49ers defense that has allowed the fewest rushing yards to running backs this year. Not as ridiculously hard a matchup as the 49ers have been in recent years, but still not a good matchup. I would prefer to have Chandler against a Bengals run defense that I think is like 28th or something in DVOA. So, yeah, Chandler would be my second choice if there's no Madison. Otherwise, I go to Connor over Spears, I guess.
Right. So we should remember as we think about Spears, and I think he could have a role, but also there's, within the range of possible outcomes is Derrick Henry going for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Texans. Last 5 games, 4 200-yard games. The outlier was the last game, 126 yards. What a slacker. He's got like 9 touchdowns over the course of those games. I mean, he is a part owner of the Texans at this point. PPR, Ferguson versus Bills or McBride versus Niners. That's a pretty good one.
I've got McBride one spot higher. Like that's a tough call, but yeah, I mean, I think so the 49ers have some injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm forgetting. Greenlaw,
Yep.
Greenlaw get hurt? And aren't they already without their starting strong safety, I want to say? So like it seems like a pretty good setup for McBride, especially in a game where maybe the Cardinals are chasing a little bit.
Would agree with this, and I have him 2 bits ahead of Ferguson, who looks perfectly suitable, people. I'm not like trying to. And you're welcome, Mike Arts. It's fantastic. And hello, Dominic. Glad you could make it here, young man. And we have questions. That's the part I like best. 2 quarterback league. Lamar's quarterback 1. Do we go with Fields at Cleveland or Browning versus Minnesota? Look, Browning has scored 50 fantasy points over the last 2 weeks. So any Browning question is fair game at this point. I'm not going to put anyone off. I think he's earned my respect with his efforts. And it's something Jeff Mans also said. Keep citing Jeff Mans. It's not like he's the smartest guy in the room, but mostly he's in the room with me, so he is. At least on Sundays during the pregame shows. He was talking about how great receiving talent now seems to be enough to drag a quarterback along to a level of productivity. And I mean, I don't know that doesn't explain Tommy DeVito. Nothing does. But it does kind of, you look at Jake Browning and think, wow, this is a pretty good receiving core and he's delivering. Maybe we should have seen this coming. We knew he worked with the first team offense the entire month of August. So interesting question though. I'm not going to sit here and argue that you should play him over Fields, but Cleveland's a tough matchup. What are you doing?
I'm going with Fields here. And like, yes, they have handed Jake Browning the keys to a Porsche, and he's doing a fine job of driving it. But like I'm going with the guy who gives you vast rushing upside. And like I think there's some passing upside with Fields too. Like, granted, I haven't looked at player props yet, and I'm sure Fields' passing total is probably under 200 yards. But man, like, he's been making it work with DJ Moore. And
Right.
as good as the Browns cornerbacks are, I still think DJ Moore is going to get his in this game. So yeah, I just like I can't turn down that Fields rushing upside. And he's still a top 10 quarterback for me this week, whereas I've got Browning down in the teens somewhere.
I do as well. And part of that is because Brian Flores has this insane pass rushing defense with all the blitzes and whatnot. Like, I have not seen, a lot of quarterbacks have not seen that level of blitzing, but Browning certainly has it. So that's a little bit of a concern for me. So
Great point.
it just the rushing ability of Fields, for me makes it a little easier. But also what you said, that DJ Moore connection's working pretty damn good. DJ Moore did not practice today, people. Just a little side note on that. He's got an ankle injury. Hoping he will be okay. Let's see. Dominic has another question here. PPR Jacobs in LA if he plays. Downs versus Pittsburgh. Chandler at Cincinnati, or Jacobs versus Chargers as the flex.
So, I mean, Jacobs does go to the front of, if he plays, I think you have to lean into the volume. So that leaves Chandler versus Downs. I'm going Chandler there, assuming Madison is out. I'm bored. Like, if Madison played, would I play Chandler over Downs? That'd be kind of a close call, actually. But I think if Madison played, I think I'd probably play Downs over Chandler.
I probably would too. I just want to double check. It hasn't been great since the injury. I think for Downs is what I want to say, but I should probably look at that and make sure I'm not being stupid.
No, he's slowed down.
Like, it's been considerable, but what were the most recent? So 3 targets, 5 targets, but he had 13 targets against Tampa Bay, which is, you kind of expect that with that defense, right? 3 against New England. 1, before.
The Colts have 9 tight ends they have to feed, Bob. So I guess that's.
I mean, I'm not against it with this matchup, but I mean, it's an easy. I think I'd probably go Downs, but and hope for the best, because I don't know. I don't. What if Chandler gets like shut out with Madison? That would be my concern. I don't know that he would get totally shut out, but it's a little bit of a concern. I would probably go Downs as well if there is a Madison, and hopefully Jacobs plays and makes all this moot, Dominic, and makes your life easier. Dominic might have another question. Defense questions, Dominic. Miami versus Jets or KC versus New England. Which quarterback do you want to pick on? Zach Wilson says, "Think carefully, young man."
Let's see. I have Miami number 1 this week, so I guess it's Miami.
Yeah, I'm not sure that last week's Zach Wilson is every week Zach Wilson. I'm just gonna.
But kudos on the player of the week.
Right?
And just when we lest anyone think fantasy football is predictable, Bob, we have Zach Wilson and Tommy DeVito as the reigning conference players of the week. That
tells you everything you need to know about this NFL season. Right. And I talk about this a fair amount, how, volatility from the NFL's perspective is a feature, not a bug. This is what they want. They want Monday night every game to mirror what we saw both games on Monday night. That would be their ideal outcome every week, is to have shocking surprises in every single game. And I'm not against it, just as long as some players are putting up consistent enough production and volume that I can field a reasonable damn team. I'll go with you on that one, Miami. Andrea has a question. Dislowski. I said it right this time, Andrea, just because I felt like I said it wrong last time once. Browning versus Minnesota, Joey Flacco or Sam Howell? Wow. I like that. I like that grouping.
Yeah. For me, Bob, it's Sam Howell.
And
like the passing volume's been consistent. I mean, that game has a high Vegas total.
Yep.
Like, you can get the Rams through the air. I mean, Flacco's interesting. He's thrown 44 and 45 passes in his first 2 starts, but the Bears pass defense has gotten a lot better. It's been actually pretty lights out like the last 4 or 5 weeks, basically ever since they got Montez Sweat and started getting healthier in the secondary. So, but still, Howell is ahead of Flacco and Browning.
Yeah, for me, Howell, I think I have him at 9, and the others are not. Right, like we mentioned, Browning, or I have Flacco right in the same range as Browning, which is the late teens, early 20s. Like Flacco, he might be perfectly fine. He feels a little bit like a trap, though. The great story, the bit of success, you're going to be drawn to that. I'm going to avoid that. I'm playing the volume here, so I would go Howell, then Browning a fair amount after that, and then Flacco slightly after Browning. So, man, you can't be the volume. I want to say Howell has thrown the ball. He's definitely thrown more than every other quarterback in the NFL. I think he's completed more passes than anyone in the NFL. And as I thought about that today, and it's like he has over 500 attempts already, I think. Right?
And Bob, we were talking about this on one of the Fantasy Pros podcasts today. Like, if you had known before the season how many pass attempts Sam Howell was going to have this year, like, where would you have wanted to draft Terry McLaurin?
Right.
And he's wide receiver 37 this year.
I was talking to someone today I was talking to Kyle Elfrink today about Jahan Dotson, because we did do an annual show on Sirius where we kind of review players that maybe we think are going to have, rise next year. And Jahan Dotson was one of them for us. And that's what our exact conversation was. How on earth does Sam Howell have over 500 attempts and Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson aren't doing a damn thing? Who's catching all these footballs?
It's just crazy.
I mean, demand to know. All right.
And it's been so unpredictable. And it does seem like Howell feels a little more comfortable throwing to the middle of the field rather than the boundaries. So, like, the answer has been Curtis Samuel a lot of the time.
I'll take it because I have a lot of Curtis Samuel. All right, Royal Slade, halfway PPR needs a flex. Josh Palmer, who has been activated, is not on the injury report. So good news there versus Vegas. He will be back, and there is no Keenan Allen. Ty Chandler at Cincy. CEH at New England. Don't need a home run. Safe is okay. Is CEH safe?
I don't know if he is against that New England run defense, Bob. Like, that's the thing. And it doesn't seem like CEH is getting much action in the passing game. Right. So, like, if Madison's out, I want Chandler.
Easy.
Yeah. I've got him with the assumption Madison's going to be out. I've got Chandler at like running back 25, and that might even be too low. And
let's just stipulate here. Madison has not practiced yet this week. It's a Saturday game, short turnaround. So I'm kind of with you. My hunch right at the moment is there will be no Madison.
If he's back, I would go to CEH, and I think Palmer would be the. Again, I just kind of don't want to dabble in the Chargers passing game.
The unknown, there's some unknowns here. But I think like CEH, just my impression after one game. We have a huge sample size to work with here, but it's kind of feeling like game script dependent. Like if they're playing behind like they did this one, you're going to see a hell of a lot more Jerick McKinnon, and maybe if they can get a lead and nurse it a little bit, maybe we'll see a little more CEH. So there are less opportunities for Kadarius Toney to line up offside. I had to take a gratuitous shot. It was much deserved, I feel.
How can you not?
All right, John Fusek. I need one running back in a flex. Singletary versus Tennessee. Connor versus San Francisco. Thielen versus Atlanta. Conklin versus Miami. 1.5 points for tight ends. And Brevin Jordan in the mix, too. Sounds like Dalton Schultz will be back this week.
Yeah, all right. So PPR. Yeah, I'm not messing with the tight ends. I think I am playing Singletary. Especially like the Tennessee run defense, if they don't have Jeffrey Simmons, that's a different beast. So I'm playing Singletary in that RB spot, and then it comes down to Connor versus Thielen. Boy, Bob, in PPR again, Connor just does not give you much in the passing game. I mean, like 14 catches at 2.6 yards per pop this year. So I think I'm going Thielen, even though his production has certainly tapered in recent weeks. But I think I would rather play him than Connor in that flex spot.
I'm just looking at some numbers here. I think I would too. He's not been. Thielen has been better with Frank Reich calling the plays. There's no doubt about it.
Yes,
but I'm probably going to go with you as well. I don't have a good and like again, talk about this endlessly. Don't overinflate the matchup in your mind. I mean, there's going to be some offense created here. I don't know how much James Conner is going to do that. Great game. We last saw him against Pittsburgh, revenge game. He lit it up. But it was, it was the Cardinals were running because they got a lead. They spent the whole second half of the game running, moving quickly, by the way, because of the storm delays. I don't think they were stopping the clock or doing anything. So,
Yeah, and that's the thing, Bob. Like he had 25 carries in that game, but
right.
he's only hit 20 carries twice this year. I think he's averaging like 14 carries. I think he's only had 3 games where he's had more than 14 carries all year. So like it's not like he's the like a I don't know, Kyron Williams type
Right.
workhorse. We're not seeing that with Connor really.
So our consensus here, by the way, who are these guys? If you just tuned into this chat and going, who the hell are these guys? Well, I'm Bob Harris. Hi, how are you? Damn glad to meet you. He's Pat Fitzmaurice. He's fantastic. He's a managing editor at Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. A fantastic ranker, contrary to his claims on X that he's only adequate. He's more than adequate. And you'll find his work constantly. You'll hear him on the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio show that I host called Football Diehards. You should listen to that on Monday, Thursday, and Fridays, 10 p.m. Saturdays. We're next 3 weeks will be on at 9 p.m. instead of the usual 8, but 3 hours will go up until midnight. And Sundays on the pregame show. So check that out. I'll be back here on Saturday, as I am every Saturday, answering all your questions. You can ask me anything. Dare you. And of course, here on the hot seat with great guests like Pat Fitzmaurice. So let's move on to the questions. That's who we are, damn it. Don't question us. Well, question us, but don't, you know what I mean. Andrea needs one wide receiver, 2 flex. Garrett, so 3 players. Flex. Garrett Wilson versus Miami. Zay Flowers versus Jacksonville. Jaguars, not good on defense. Addison versus Cincinnati. Achane versus the New York Football Jets. And CEH versus New England. Half a point per reception.
Wait, we need one.
We need one wide receiver, 2 flex.
So 3 of these. Yeah, I mean, like Achane has to be one of the guys.
He is.
And then I'm going Garrett Wilson and Zay Flowers.
I am too.
Over Zay and Addison. Glad we're joined at the hip on that one, Bob.
We've been joined at the hip a lot here. I feel like, like a lot of times, you sit here and you're thinking, oh, this person is like, we're totally disagreeing. And you feel like you're not helping anyone in the room out. I just want to say the Jaguars, the defensive numbers have been horrible.
Really bad lately.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like brutally bad. So yeah, I'm gonna go easy call on Zay Flowers for me, and I'm with you on Wilson. Just he gets the targets. Although Breece Hall, way to go, young man, in the receiving game. It's putting a little adding. He hasn't not been running the ball great, but he's catching the ball great, and he even ran a little bit. So let's see what we have. I sent a message. Oh, there we go. All right, I don't know what that meant, but we'll find this out. John Fusak, flex PPR, Thielen versus Atlanta, Moss versus Pittsburgh. You like the way I've got these people trained to give us the opponents so we don't have to strain our brains. Thielen versus Atlanta, Moss versus Pittsburgh, Brown versus Tennessee, And now I have to strain my brain. It's Noah Brown.
Okay.
Dubs versus Tampa Bay, or the Human Dortch versus San Francisco.
I got to go Moss here. Yeah, it's Moss. I mean, he's a top 10 running back play this week. I think he's inside my top 10.
Yeah. Well, so it's been a couple disappointing weeks, I think,
Sure.
Generally speaking. But, again, we don't always get the outcomes we want. What we want is the opportunity to get those outcomes. And often the outcomes, the outcomes don't come without opportunities. And there's not a lot of running backs out there. There are a handful who get 100% of their team's running back touches, and he's one of them. He's getting like 90% of the snaps. Now, Jonathan Taylor has not been ruled out yet. He's getting closer to his return, but he's not also practiced. So keep an eye on that. Moss, though, all the way for me against Pittsburgh as well. If like Jonathan Taylor was back, I'd probably Adam Thielen.
I think so too. Unless, boy, if CJ Stroud is cleared, I would maybe make a case for Noah Brown over Thielen.
It's still been 2 games, but you're right. I mean, I'd probably play that upside there in that matchup, and it would be Stroud dependent. So there you have that. Andrew needs 1. DeMarcus Robinson. He had 15 targets over the last 2 games. Jahan Dotson versus the Rams, same game. Or Demario Douglas versus KC. I have not seen that portion of the injury report yet. See if Douglas, it was out last week with the concussion. he's been very good. One of the only playable commodities, although Juju Smith-Schuster got a nice vote last week. Demarcus Robinson seems to be coming on. Tutu Atwell's a little nicked up. I think he's in the concussion protocol. That would help. Any of these, which of these appeal to you the most?
Yeah, I think it's Demario Douglas. Demario Douglas, if he plays, and I know the
Is.
Kansas City defense has been much tougher against the pass than they've been against the run, but like Demario Douglas could be a high volume receiver for them. Like he's pretty much the lead receiver for the Patriots if he's healthy. So Demarcus Robinson, intriguing because of that matchup. I mean, like Washington's giving up 10 yards per pass attempt over their last 3 games. I mean, they've just been so
they don't
flammable.
even play defense there.
Right. So like he's in interest, but like Demarcus Robinson could also get 2 targets.
Yeah.
So
he's got 15 targets, but how many of them has he caught?
Right. Exactly.
Like opportunities with but I will say this for, Matthew Stafford seems to have some trust in him. And some of those, 15 targets that didn't get caught were some pretty tight window throws or heavily defended throws that just didn't connect. So it's interesting. I'm with you. Douglas to me is the easy answer in a PPR. Andrea. Me too. Godwin versus Green Bay, Brandon Cooks versus Buffalo, Adam Thielen versus Atlanta, or the aforementioned Robinson versus Washington. This also PPR.
So I think Godwin missed practice today, and as it is, he would be number 3 for me here, I think, behind Thielen and Cooks.
Cooks,
yeah. And granted, I mean, Cooks he is doing a lot with not a great deal of volume. Yeah, somewhere I've got a number on this if I check my notes here, but he is averaging 2.5 PPR points per target over the last 5 games or something. He has just been insanely efficient, kind of a reflection of how that passing game is clicking in Dallas with Dak at the controls. So yeah, I think I'd lean into that with Cooks and go with Thielen. Godwin's not really getting heavy volume. He doesn't seem to have the same sort of connection with Baker Mayfield that he had with Tom Brady. Joel Cox, my guy.
Joel Cox knows we're sharing a brain too.
Yes.
He spent too much time with us in human form. I blame him. Yeah, I'm with you though. I would agree with this 100%. And I guess you look at some of these situations, in Cook's case, I mean, I want to play volume, but I also want to play a really super good offense more so than I want to play the outlier. And the outlier for me is Robinson, even with the volume last couple of games. And hopefully this is your, third receiver and you've got a little wiggle room there and your top guys come through. Mr. Grapefruit, greetings, sir. I find you to be quite sour, but yet delicious. Hello, fellas. 10-team PPR, Keaton Mitchell or Tyjae Spears. Rest O season. Got Pollard, Kyron, and Donta Foreman at running back.
Boy, I
think I'm on this question already.
I'm still going with, I think I'm going with Keaton Mitchell over Tyjae Spears, but hopefully he can just roll with Pollard and Kyron and maybe flex a wide receiver.
Yep, I'm with you. Keaton Mitchell's getting enough touches that I'm waiting for the explosion. Tyjae Spears been okay. He had some nice explosive plays, one that didn't actually turn into a play, but again, I feel like this is possible. This is a Derrick Henry week, and also it's December Derrick, and Mike Vrabel wants him some December Derrick. I feel like just looking at him on the sidelines, he has that angry look in his eye that he'd like to see more Derrick Henry stiff arms. Andrea needs one flex. DJ Moore versus Cleveland. Deontay Johnson versus Indy. Addison versus Cincinnati. James Conner versus San Francisco.
Well, the only reason I guess I have to read past DJ Moore, Bob, is because he didn't practice today.
That's it.
I think he's going to play. If he does not play, kind of a close call between Deontay and James Conner for me on this one.
Me too. Addison has not hit. He's only had double digits once since week 8, or none times since week 8. So he had 11 points then. Well, no, he had one week. So he seems dicey, man. Seems dicey.
Yeah. I mean,
especially quarterback play.
I guess I'd lean into the PPR format with Deontay Johnson, although we're getting Bizarro We're getting bizarro Deontay Johnson, Bob, because normally he's this high volume receiver who doesn't score touchdowns. And lately he's not getting more than 7 or 8 targets a game, but he scored touchdowns in his last 2 games. So I
Take 'em.
don't know who you are anymore, Deontay Johnson.
We've got tight end questioning going on in the chat. Look at this, Coop. How high is Trey McBride's ceiling going forward? Ceiling is league winner if he can get through the tough matchup. Rest of the season for sure. Yeah, I like that. Because who they got? I was looking at the schedule the other day. This is true. More Cooper questions. I'm all hoarding. I have Laporta too. Royal Slade, you are a greedy son of a
He's got a royal flush at tight end, basically.
Need a Keenan replacement. Hollywood versus San Francisco. London versus Carolina. Jackson Smith and Jigba versus Philly. Boy, that Philly defense is tempting. Is it tempting enough?
It's not for me, Bob. I think I'm playing Drake London here. Just because like he's really the only game in town for the Falcons at wide receiver. I know the Panthers have allowed like maybe the 5th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. Haven't been a great matchup, but like I think London's I don't want to say necessarily he's the best player. JSN is also an excellent player and has a better matchup, but
more volume. The anticipated volume for London has got to be the difference.
Yeah, right? Yeah. JSN is sharing targets with Lockett and Metcalf, whereas, and I kind of don't want to mess with Hollywood, especially with this heel injury. And I just like we really haven't seen Hollywood have any splash games for quite a while. So
I didn't look this week because my eyes were glazed over at London's numbers, but like the week before, every other receiver, London didn't do anything, but every other receiver had like 1 target total combined amongst them all. So there's that. Joey, right? Eagle screams abound. With Keenan Allen out, Josh Palmer or Adam Thielen in a half-point PPR.
Sounds like it's Thielen for both of us, Bob.
I'm
sure.
You
agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Almost has to be. I mean, I want to see a little Easton stick before I have to start relying on a little Easton stick because I don't know how the stick swings or anything.
Yeah, and I don't want to like totally trash Easton State. Like, didn't he win like 3 or 4 FCS national championships? And it's not like he can't throw a spiral, but man, like just no Keenan Allen. I just don't, and it's not like the Raiders defense is a pushover. So
no. The Raiders defense has gotten a lot better. They're pretty much carrying this team. Yeah, like last week's game, look no further. Right? Like
yeah, exactly. I think they're like, I want to say they're close to top 10 in DVOA against the pass. It's a good defense now.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think if you're an NFL defensive player and you hold your opposition to 3 points, you expect to win.
Yes, most of the time.
Thanks, Bob, says Jason Wilson. Well, thank you, Jason Wilson, for coming around. Playoffs in 2 or 3 leagues. Yes. Here we go. Crazy 2. Kelsey versus Patriots for McBride versus 49ers. Well, Belichick does this, but every coach does this. That's kind of the goal, right? To take away what the other team does good. But sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm still playing Kelsey. That's the over management we were talking about at the top of the show, Bob. I think. No offense, Jason. Right. Don't do it. Roll with Kelsey.
Like, I mean, McBride is very good, and I mean, San Francisco is very tough. So is New England. I mean, I'm probably going to go. You do have the injuries in New England and San Francisco. I'm not going to talk myself into that. Don't fall into that. So it's a trap, right? This is what we do. And they are close enough where, I mean, and let me go back to the is it crazy part. Almost, I want to say 97.3% of the time. No, it's not crazy. It's not necessarily what I would do. I don't know that it's advisable, but is it like insane to start a top 5 tight end over the top tight end? No, to pretend I can predict with that level of granularity within a tier who is going to score exactly the most points. I'm not going to pretend I can do that. But I do. But names come with history, right? And Travis Kelce comes with a pretty impressive history.
And it's always tough when you've got a tight end as good as Trey McBride sitting on your bench and you're like looking for ways to get him in. But, Jason's probably got some other really good flex options. And it's just, there's McBride on your bench. But no, you got to go with Kelce.
Hi, Josh. Welcome to the chat. Glad you could make it. Hope you become a regular. We'd love to have you. And I don't have Pat every time, but I try to emulate. I try to channel my inner Fitzmaurice every chance I get. I have 2 lineup questions, or he has 2 lineup questions. At wide receiver 3 for PPR, JSN, Downs, or Palmer. Just want 10 points. Well, just wants 10. I think you're getting a little greedy there, Josh.
Let's go with the best player in the best matchup, JSN.
I'm agreeing with you here. If Downs had been a little busier the last few weeks, I don't know. One busy game. In a PPR set 1, Kamara versus Giants. Jason, Brees Hall versus Dolphins. This is going to be one of those. James Cool versus Cowboys. This is James Cook. Or Jahmyr Gibbs versus Broncos. Sit 1. I know mine.
Yeah, for me, it is, and it's a tough sit. It's James Cook.
Have a seat, James. That's the correct answer.
It is. Yeah, it's between Hall and Cook. But like we said, and it was a little frustrating last week that James Cook was actually playing pretty well, but they were insisting on working in Latavius Murray and Ty Johnson. So like he's below that workhorse threshold, I think. And like Kamara and Gibbs, I think are kind of slam dunks. Gibbs, especially with the matchup against Denver. So Hall and Cook, it's close, but I like Hall a little bit more.
Yeah, it's impossible for me not to play Alvin Kamara. No, regardless of opponent. I mean, the New York Giants aren't scaring me terribly in this one anyway. Josh also has a flex question. Warren or Chandler, assuming Madison is out. Jalen Warren or Ty Chandler.
I have
Jalen Warren against the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and the Colts are a little I know their run defense. When you look at it, it looks like it's a great matchup, but I think they got Grover Stewart back at
I think they did, yes,
which makes them tougher against the run. I have Chandler ranked 1 spot ahead of Jalen Warren with the assumption that Madison is going to be out, and that is very close to being in the coin flip zone for me.
Yeah, I'm just going to double check mine here. I think it's very close. I'm going to go with Pat on this one just because we've been agreeing so much. Yep. Actually, I have them ranked the same. Fair enough.
That's one of those things, like if we got news about either team's right guard being out, I might pivot to the other guy. It's that close.
It is very close. And I think we kind of went through this one a little earlier, but Sam Howell versus Baker Mayfield, I think we're both in the Howell camp here.
Yes, sir.
All right, Dominic, can I expect another big game from Zeke again this week versus KC in a PPR league? Is Zeke a trap or do you agree with me? Zeke looks like he can still play.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if we're going to get another 29 touches and another 91% snap share, but I do think the outlook is pretty good. And KC is definitely a lot better against the pass than they are against the run. So, it makes sense for the Patriots to endeavor to keep Patrick Mahomes off the field and run the ball a lot. And
the one reliable piece is that running back. Let's just acknowledge here quickly, Dominic, that Ramondre Stevenson worked on a limited basis today. I do not know how limited or what that means. It might be chicanery by the people who in charge there in New England. They're often known for this, but he did work on a limited basis. My expectation has been that he's not going to be available this week. So watch that. But I expect another solid game. The running back pieces have been the piece. It's been good. Whoever the running back is, going back for quite some time. For New England, the Patriots, run by Bill Belichick, will take away your best thing. Garrett Wilson or Jalen Warren has a 40% chance to win. Don't know that you need a floor play here. You need a little bit of a swing for the fence.
Boy, yeah, this is a tough one. I am leaning towards the guy who I think is like the superstar here. I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson, even though he needs to rely on Zach Wilson. That's a little bit problematic, but yeah, I mean, this is close, but I'm going with Garrett Wilson, I think.
I have to double check my figures.
What about you? But
I think Jalen Warren seems like a true home run play. I feel like we've gotten to the point where Garrett Wilson is like a high floor receiver, with as long as the other Wilson is with him. So I'm just checking. Actually, it's closer than I thought. I don't think Garrett Wilson is a swing for the fence play, but I do think he's got the higher floor.
I have them within 6 spots of each other in my flex rankings.
Yep.
And I do have Garrett Wilson a little higher.
Me too. It's not 6, but it's close. All right, fair enough. Pat, why don't we disagree on something? What's your least favorite soda pop? No, you don't drink that.
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew. Love Mountain Dew. I don't even like Mountain Dew. I just want to disagree with you. I'm a cream soda guy. Diet cream soda is my weakness.
Good stuff.
All right, here we go. Sal M just wanted to know desperately about my desire for cream soda. Full PPR needs 2 out of Amon-Ra. Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers.
Amon-Ra, despite the recent downturn, has to play. Boy, I know I've got Flowers and Wilson pretty close together in my rankings, which I'm going to check really quickly. I think I have Flowers just slightly ahead, and it looks like, that isn't. No, I've got Garrett Wilson.
I thought we were going to disagree. I've got Garrett Wilson at 21, Flowers at 25.
Oh my God, that's exactly where I have them too.
It's a great
21
matchup.
and 25. Oh my goodness.
Damn it.
We are. Right. What a mind meld we've got going on here, Bob.
We really do. It's like it's almost never happens. Hi, Toby. How are you? Jalen Warren or Zamir White? I think for both of us, this is going to be an easy call that if there is no Josh Jacobs, there is only one answer. It's Zamir White. Correct. If there isn't Josh Jacobs, there's only one answer, and it's Jalen Warren.
Yes.
Nice.
Agreed.
Thank you, Dominic Conti, for showing up. You're a fantastic questioner, and you draw the best of the answers out of us. Are you going to be on Saturday because the 3 games playing starting at 1 p.m.? I think I'm still going to do it. And if anyone shows up, we'll talk about the games and we'll talk about things. And if nobody shows up, I'll sit here and peer over the top of my computer screen at the games and we'll have a good time. So yes, that's exactly what we'll do, Andrea. I hope you want to come. We'll talk about the games. We'll talk about any questions you have for the Sunday slate, and happy to do that. And also I'll be on the radio that night. And so if you don't make it here to ask questions, what are you doing 3 hours? I think we're going to do double guests too on Saturday night. We're not going to do a game of the week since the games will be ongoing. So we're going to have a couple of fantasy guests. I have not confirmed with them, but they're fantastic if they do. So you'll not want to miss out on that. The Saturday Night Football Diehards radio program, 9 to 12, only on the Fantasy Channel this week. The NFL radio channel, they like the games and stuff. Joel Cox, Chandler over Warren, but it's close. See, Joel Cox is there.
Joel's been on this mind meld with us, Bob. Joel is our third.
We got a few more minutes here. If you have any other questions, we'll jump into it. I want to get a few more kind of strategic points with Pat. Like when you're looking at your defenses this time of year, I mean, I feel like I'm almost dismissive of it. And like I take the lazy approach, like I'm picking on quarterbacks. Is there anything else we're looking at? What is it you're looking at when you're looking at defense, or is it totally scoring scheme dependent?
I think we're mainly picking on quarterbacks. Like we're not totally agnostic of the talent level on a defense. And I'll look at injuries and how that weighs into it too. Like if a team is without its best pass rusher, that might sour me a little bit on a team. But mostly, yes, Bob, I think we are picking on quarterbacks first and foremost.
So like there are multi-levels for me. There is the lousy quarterback on the other side. There are disruptive playmakers on my defense, right? Which probably if I drafted them, there probably is, because that's what I'm looking for in defenses. I want defenses with guys who disrupt things at every level. And if it's not every level, 2 levels. And if it's not 2 levels, it's super disruptive at 1 level. So that's it. That is what I'm looking at. We do have more questions here. We will get to them that aren't mine, because I ask defense questions. Who likes that? In a non-PPR, Likely versus the Jaguars or Laporta versus the Broncos. Feel like there's overthinking going on here, Jason.
It's got to be Sammy ball game.
I'm with you. I think it's hard for me to sit him right now. Nick Mullins at Cincinnati or Desmond Ridder. Ouch.
Yeah. So I think I'm going Ridder here because there's a little bit of rushing upside. I know the Panthers have been tough on quarterbacks, but boy, Bob, we're talking about streaming defenses and quarterbacks you pick on. I can't remember how many career starts Nick Mullins has. It's either 17 or 18 games, I want to say, and he's thrown 24 interceptions in those 17 starts. He throws some YOLO balls. So Mullins not really a guy I want to play, and a guy I wouldn't mind picking on with the Cincinnati defense if I needed a streaming option.
Yeah, it's not been good. Although he did throw for more yards in a quarter than Dobbs did the entire game up to that point. So yes,
He's
that
he's
going
kind of he's got the sort of Jameis Winston gene where he
let it go.
yeah, he doesn't mind making the tight windows throws 30 yards downfield.
All right, Singletary needs to know Singletary versus Tennessee, McKinnon versus New England, DeMario Pat Douglas versus the Kansas City Chiefs, Goddard versus Seattle, or Warren versus Indy. All those choices for a single flex and a half-point PPR.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Bob. For me, this comes down to Singletary versus Warren, and as of now, I've got Warren ranked higher. I'm a little bit concerned about the Houston offense if they don't have Stroud. Even if Stroud comes back, I don't know if that would push him past Warren in my rankings.
Yeah, I have Singletary. I have Warren a good tier up from Singletary myself, and
Yeah.
Singletary and Pierce down in the same range. So, and they're limiting factors for each other, or at least limiting factors for me to view them. So yeah, we'll go. So I'll go there. Like I think when you look at McKinnon at this point of the season, are you not just like thinking he's you're hoping he turns into last year's McKinnon? That like hope is not the best strategy.
Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. Like it's just hard to get over the fact that he had 4 carries last week and that was his season high in carries.
Touchdown though.
I know. And that's the thing. Like he is so much. I do think he's a better, like much better player than CEH.
I do too.
But like the limited workload on the ground, and I understand it. He's an older guy and probably weighs 190 pounds. But yeah, like I'd love to see them run back what they did with him last year.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate the kind words. We'll finish up with a defensive question because Jason wants to ask one, and I'm here for that. Falcons or Dolphins as the start. I think Pat has stated his case prior to this. Miami's number one, no matter how bad Bryce.
They are tough, and like they have a knack for making plays too. A lot of it. Shout out to my guy, former Wisconsin Badger Andrew Van Ginkel, who always seems to have a knack for knocking balls out of people's hands. So yeah, I'm going Dolphins here.
All right, fair enough, man. We got Sal sneaking in here. One last question here before we get out. Desperate running back in the league. Thoughts on Michael Carter getting a heavier workload due to game script? I don't know that that's a crazy question at all.
Yeah, I mean, we saw something like that maybe 3 weeks ago where Michael Carter played.
Right
was
before
it 2 weeks ago?
Right before the bye.
Why? So yeah, like
I felt like that was like the game was so out of hand that it was more like getting Carter, some up to speed in the offense. I mean, he took every fourth quarter snap in that game. Was it against the Rams, I believe?
Yeah, but now they also do have Amari DiMercato back. So like it's hard to understand what the pecking order is there, but like, yeah, I and by the way, Sal, I totally respect it. Like I play in some 16 team leagues where sometimes you got to get one of these pulls. But yeah, it's just hard to predict any sort of like bankable usage for Michael Carter, even if the game script goes sideways for the Cardinals.
Since you're such an expert in the dynasty world, we'll do a keeper thing here. Roshan and keeper.
Yeah, I was hoping Roshan was going to get some sort of extended audition for 2024 down the stretch here, but then like we see Deonta Foreman come back from an injury and immediately reassume the lead running back role. So I kind of think Roshan's going to be a committee back. Like we should. I don't think he's a guy you're going out of your way to keep for 2024.
Yeah, we got you, Roshan it is, and we're good with that. And I agree with that, Pat. Quickly, before I turn you loose and let you have a normal evening of gentle relaxation, tell everyone what they should be looking for on the FantasyPros and Betting Pro sites.
Yeah, Bob, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. So yeah, just go to FantasyPros.com for all your needs. We always have a lot of great tools, rankings, aggregated rankings, great articles, and check out the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. And of course, if you are inclined to drop a few dollars on NFL or college games. Be sure to check us out at bettingpros.com too. And you can find me on Twitter at Fitz_FF.
Yeah, I should have said that. What the hell's the matter with you? You find me at FootballDiehards. It's right over there. It's
Oh
right
yeah, it's right
underneath
there. What am I? I think
I
people can
usually
read,
say that
so-
more. I'm like a trained host of these things for many years, and I just totally screwed the pooch on that one. Good for me. All right, kids. Have a good night. Again, we'll see you on Saturday here. I know there'll be games ongoing, but I'll be here with you. We'll see if anyone shows up. If you do, I'll talk to you. Otherwise, you can catch me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Monday, Thursday, Friday, 10 p.m., Saturday, 9 p.m., Sunday, 11 a.m. Be there. Aloha. Thank you all.